Thank you, everybody, for joining us today and for this conversation. My name's Brett Spiegel. I'm the Vice President of Direct Ordering at Checkmate. I oversee the team that's building out our digital menu board platform, and that's what we're here to talk about today. Everyone's been to a webinar. We weren't really interested in just doing another webinar where we stand here and we talk at you and show you information. And so that's why we invited Sean Walchef to join. Sean is playing the role of the discerning buyer. He's going to ask the questions that a skeptical operator would ask, and honestly, going to keep me honest. And so he's here to challenge us. And as we go through this, again, serve as that sort of voice of everyone else along the way to poke holes and to make sure that we're just having an honest conversation. So, Sean, I'll hand it to you. Please introduce yourself, and then we're just going to jump right in.
Sure. My name's Sean Walchef. I own Cali Barbecue in San Diego. So we have three restaurant locations, a stadium location, a QSR location, and a full service smokehouse sports bar. Been doing it for 18 years, but I built a media company, a B2B storytelling company on top of our restaurant and been able to work with over 50 best-in-class restaurant tech brands in our last 8 years. We believe deeply in storytelling. We believe in owners, operators getting the technology that they need to own and operate better, more profitable, more sustainable businesses. I'm very excited about the webinar that's not a webinar because I get to challenge Brett, and my job is to ask the questions that you, the audience, hopefully are thinking in your minds. I talk to tech professionals, tech founders, tech salespeople, engineers. I'm on customer advisory boards. I live in the hospitality technology ecosystem. So I call bullshit when I see it. And if Brett tries to slip something past us, I will call it out on your behalf. But more importantly, I'm here to learn and here to ask questions. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, and again, thanks so much. Obviously, busy guy, and so taking out time from your day to be here, we really appreciate it. So, a little quick context, and we'll jump right in. So, it's important for us to lay the foundation of what we're doing here at Checkmate, and really, we are building software that runs on digital menu boards. We're not a hardware company. We certainly can play the role of helping procure and project manage the distribution of hardware, but ultimately we're that intelligence layer that sits on top of the screens. That distinction is really important as we get into what we're about to show you. So with that, we'll jump right in. So the thing that we're so excited to report on here is that we recently ran a very targeted test and learn campaign with a large QSR brand across a set of controlled locations. And what we did there is we identified a very specific cohort of guests. Those are specifically guests who really only order a la carte items. You could traditional QSR, imagine they have items that they sell individually, items that they sell as a value meal or as a combo. And we targeted when a guest adds an a la carte item to their order, we take over the full screen with a piece of unique creative animation that nudges them to make it a combo, right? So upgrade, we'll take a sandwich as an example. You add a sandwich to your order. Here's that sandwich, visually the same one that you just ordered, but composed with a fry and a drink, and make it a meal for, $1.50. So we ran that experiment. We get, tens of thousands of orders, hit statistical relevance, and the results were a 6.5% lift in AOV for those guests who saw the creative versus guests that did not. So we split the audience 50-50. 50% of guests just saw the regular digital menu boards as they are. 50% of guests, when they added that item, that set of items, we had took over a screen with animation and showed them this call to action to make it a combo. And again, comparing those two cohorts, a 6.5% lift in check size, which we honestly think is a pretty phenomenal number in terms of the business impact that this can have for this restaurant.
Can you share a little bit about like how many locations did you test?
And this was targeted to about 24 total locations. Within those
Different
locations,
different regions of the country?
couple different regions of the country, and within those, everything else was exactly the same. So we wanted to try to account for any kind of regional bias, any kind of different profiles of customers, but really everything else was exactly the same.
And define cohort. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, sure. So we really kind of like try to look at guests and try to group them together based on purchasing behavior. So in this instance, we say some amount of guests they just order a la carte items. Some amount of guests will order the combo meals. Some amount of guests are ordering neither. They're just there maybe getting sides and drinks only, or they're just getting a dessert. So we defined those cohorts, groupings of customers based on that profile of how they order, the types of things that they order. And so for us, we just, again, we saw this opportunity to focus on just those customers that are just getting a la carte and trying to push them effectively from one cohort to another. From an a la carte orderer to a combo meal orderer and try to move them through those cohorts.
So I'm not a scientist. I'm going to ask you the stupid question that I maybe the audience is also thinking, which is just explain to me. We have 24 locations, right? Are
Yep.
we talking about drive-through specifically? Or are we talking about kiosk in store? What specific are we talking about?
That's a great question. This is just targeted at the drive-through.
Okay, drive-through. So 24 locations, and that's from 10 a.m. in the morning till 12 p.m. And then we're defining that as a cohort, or how does it work?
Yeah, so it throughout that time period, a cohort would be really defined on anybody that just added an a la carte item to their order falls within the cohort.
So
Doesn't
at
matter what
for
time of
that
day it
20
is.
24-hour period or whenever the drive-through is open.
This particular campaign ran for about 4 weeks. So
Okay.
within that 4 week period, anybody that added an a la carte item to their order, okay, give me sandwich A, hit them with that piece of creative, that animation on the screen that says get sandwich A as a combo, right? That was the test. So 50% of people that ordered sandwich A just saw nothing, just the regular experience,
Hmm.
and then 50% the test group saw that animation to push them to make it to a combo.
That's amazing. How do you do that test? Like how do you decide is it one location that's only doing one of those tests and the other location that's getting the creative?
Nope, everybody. So in terms of the way that we split 50% see nothing, that's the control, right?
Yep.
That's this, and then 50% see the test was every other session. So we in this case we define a session, and it's important to say that like at the end of the day, like we're a bunch of e-com people, right? E-commerce, we do webs and apps and we do kiosks, and these are just standard best practices from e-commerce. We just
Yep.
thought it was an interesting and novel idea to kind of pretend like the digital menu board in a drive-through was a website. And if you do that, what would you do in terms of like testing and A/B testing? So similar like when somebody lands on a website, right? That's a session. So somebody drives in front of the digital menu board to start their order, we treat that as a session. And so, Sean, you pull up, you place your order, and let's say you're now in group A, the control group, you wouldn't see anything. And I pull up behind you immediately right after you. I'm now in group B, and I'm going to see the test if I add the orders. So it's literally one and then another A, B, A, B, A, B across these 24 locations across 4 weeks. So we're talking about literally tens of thousands of orders in terms of the scale of the amount of data that we collected during this campaign.
I'm going to ask a question about creative. How important is
Yeah.
the creative? Because if you put a shitty photo up in front of a guest, I'm guessing that's not going to help. But
Yeah. Our point of view really is that we can break down what we're going to do in terms of affect or manipulate or change the content that's on the menu board based on four key parameters. And that's like, what is the actual item that we're showing, which is kind of like the first and foremost and pretty critical. So here, again, we said, we're gonna just target showing combo versions of every a la carte item. That's the what we're gonna it's a combo thing. And you've got other tests that we're gonna be running, which is using machine learning to kind of pair things together, which may not be this sort of like from like clear from A to B in terms of a journey, but just sort of might things go well together based on historical data. So that's the what. What you're asking is the how do we visually show it? And it's critical, but we're not totally sure if we can provide a subjective point of view by looking at something and just saying this looks really good to us, this feels really good. It should be tested and validated, right? We're
Right.
talking about the angle of the food photography, the background styling, the fonts that we're using for like, you have to say something. If you don't say anything and just show an image, people aren't going to do anything. So we say, make it a meal, like upgrade to a meal, right? And so, but what font we're using there that grabs their attention, the color, the way that we're playing with color, the way that we're using animation as a way to grab your attention and make you look over here because something's kind of catching your eye. So it absolutely matters. We just need to understand all those variables and then test it out. So the what we're showing, how we're showing it, where on the screen we're showing it. You typically have a order confirmation screen area where you can see your order being
Mhm.
built in real time. Do we put something inside of that, above it, to the side of it? Do we take over all of the screens? All of it's testable. And then the thing that I think is maybe as important, maybe more, not sure yet, is timing. The when do we actually do something? And so for this particular test, we wanted to capture people again, almost like it was a conversation. And it's challenging, I think, to rely on and to sort of expect the team members that they're taking orders, they're bagging orders, they're jumping on the line and cooking, right? Every single time someone asks for a sandwich, ask them to make it a combo. Like we know it's in the training materials, but in practice and in reality, it's just the thing that gets dropped when you got 1,000 things going on. So if we think about that from a conversation standpoint, again, like I want the sandwich A, and then the screen itself can do the work. The screen itself can ask, do you want to make that a combo by showing you that item now composed as a full meal? So that's from a timing perspective is important. Again, when do you show these things? Do you have them always on throughout the entire order? Do you trigger them based on moments in the guest journey? That what do we show? How do we show? Where do we show it? When do we show it? All of those elements are should be treated as things that can be tweaked and variables and should be tested. We should be testing everything.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, any other questions on this at all?
No, I mean that explaining the cohorts and explaining how the test is done is very helpful because you can see how that scales and you can see how other brands can, talk to Checkmate to do their own study. I'm guessing that's something that you guys do. Is that right?
Yeah, our role here and the role that we took on with this and sort of how we frame a partnership for any brand that we work with is dig deep into the data and understand the data. And that's where we kind of came to this observation about just as a percentage, the number of guests that were ordering a la carte versus combos was higher than we expected. And can we do anything about that? So it's really immersing in the data, kind of putting together these ideas, these hypotheses, if you will, of like, what if we did this? And then we've got a really great data science team. They sit down and they really map out what do we need to do from an integrity of the experiment, the integrity of the campaign to say we need X number of orders before we have statistical relevance. That's a word that they love to use constantly, and it's a word I'm trying to bring into my own day-to-day speaking. This is statistically relevant because sometimes things just happen by chance, right? You can run something, you're like, look, it's going great. Okay, awesome. We're good. Let's roll it out. Let's put it to 5,000 locations. And then like, oh, it didn't hold anywhere else. Well, because it was kind of more of a seasonal thing. You just by chance happen to. So like this is statistical relevance is incredibly important for that team as they're building it out. So we're understanding the opportunities, we're crafting the experiments and campaigns, we're building the creative, right? So for this, I said we have a different piece of animation that runs that's tied to every individual item on the menu. So sandwich A, B, C, D, they always all have their own different creative treatment. So our team designed all of those and made sure that they, worked with the brand, everything looks good and is approved, and set it up, run it, and then experiment on it. And I think where we go from here, just with this one brand in particular, is that we identified a single, again, I'll use it cohort, right? We defined a set of guests based on a shared pattern of how they order, and we put something in front of just those guests. Right now, what's the next set of guests and how they order, and what can we do for them? And then the next set, and it's sort of we start building effectively a playbook cohort by cohort, group by group, profile by profile, maybe region by region, but we just not everything's going to work for everyone. Not everything is going to work everywhere. And so as we start to test and move these tests in different regions and look at different groupings of customers, we start to build out that playbook.
Amazing.
Cool. All right, let's walk through. So I mean, I talked a lot about the things that we've learned along the way, and I think you've asked some really great questions that started to suss some of these things out. But we really view this screen in particular, the drive-through screen, as it's the last mile. And it's the final thing that gets presented to a guest that gets put in front of their face before they make a decision or while they're making the decision about what they're going to be purchasing. And so, when you think about all of the other ways that you're influencing guests from, TikTok videos to on-air advertising to every piece of your media campaign, they ultimately for large QSR brands, they end up here, and 50 to 70% of their revenue is still coming through the drive-through, right? So this is a significant part of where they're coming from, and it's here. And being able to influence them in real time at the point of purchase, we found that they're much more influenceable than we thought. If as long as you have and you're tying the right piece of creative at the right time and putting it in front of them, again, placement matters, timing matters, obviously design matters. But when all those things kind of work together, we just showed we can move the needle in terms of ordering behavior and what things guests are purchasing. So we thought that was super interesting. Much more than we expected. Again, that 6.5%. We honestly like we turned the data over to the brand and said, we don't believe this. This is too big. We don't want to make any promises like this. Like we love being in the 1 to 2% zone. We don't want to be held accountable for this kind of an impact. And they ran the numbers. They said, no, this looks right, and this is very exciting.
Wow.
Um, Another thing that we've learned is I think that traditionally, and this is true of a lot of the enterprise brands that we're talking to, they all want to be experimental. They all want to run A/B tests and try things out. But a lot of the way that the legacy infrastructure for digital menu boards was designed is that everything just takes a long time. It's a lot of like custom coding and custom, like all like cooking things up. And we've been told many times that, things take at least 6 weeks before if you turn over to a design before the time that you get live. And then building things and planning things out, you end up being able to run maybe 2 experiments a year. We want to be able to run 2 experiments a month. And so we've really pushed our product and engineering team to build the infrastructure that allows us to move incredibly fast. Because the limiting factor here is just the time to go from I have an idea to it's in front of my customers. And if we can reduce that time to days, and we have enough scale to hit statistical relevance, then we can be rapidly cycling through these. And it's no longer about just like taking big swings, going for huge, big impacts, but it's about targeting a small cohort of customers and doing something for them and then moving to another and moving to another and incrementally making changes and testing those changes that start stacking over time and where you're actually seeing a very significant impact on your business when you look now kind of year over year as you're starting to stack things together.
Can you share a little bit about point of sale integration?
Yeah, it's table stakes and sort of foundational.
Making sure.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, you know, the point of sale is still the source of truth for the menu. It starts there, it's managed there, and that's from pricing, right? Change of pricing there, and it needs to kind of reflect across the digital ecosystem with menu boards being just a piece of that, and 86ing and product availability. So those sort of like directly tie the menu in the point of sale to the menu as it's on the board. And what do you do when you 86 something? Do we put like a not available thing on it? Do we replace it with something else? We have capabilities of doing all of that, and it's sort of interesting to kind of play through some of those opportunities. But the biggest piece of the point of sale connection really comes from when that team member is entering the order, right? You're ordering through the speaker and they're on the headset on the inside and they're punching the order in. First, that has to reflect in real time on the boards so that you don't have any issues with accuracy. And make sure that that team member heard you correctly, that your order is looking accurate and is showing exactly the way that you want it. But we tap into that feed to run our upsell recommendations. So that's how we can see, again, similar to e-commerce, you add something to your cart and maybe you get a pop-up or maybe you get like a nudge or recommendation in the cart itself. Apply that same principle here, but instead of the guest clicking on something to add to their order, they're asking for something from the team member. The team member's punching in the point of sale and instantly goes up to the order confirmation board like a cart, and we are showing recommended products just like e-commerce. And that's where we're seeing that big impact is our ability to tap into that live feed coming from the point of sale.
Great.
Yeah, so all of these things were huge learnings for us. The one thing that we set out down this path because we just again we thought it was a novel idea to treat these menu boards like their e-commerce websites, and we're not a hardware company, but we've brought some hardware expertise in-house at this point for sure. But we've started noticing that like we're still kind of responsible for how everything is running from a software perspective, but also from a hardware perspective. And again, you do all this time planning all of these experiments and campaigns, and even like just the normal day-to-day kind of running a restaurant with your menu and making sure that you've got the LTOs that are rotating in and out in time, and all of your menu changes are happening appropriate. And we found that so often a lot of the brands that we were talking with when we were first sort of entering into this, they just found it to be a massive black box and to like not actually knowing what was happening on the screens themselves. And so if you cannot optimize what you can't see, if you can't improve what you can't measure. And so for us, that was critically important to be able to build the infrastructure, the tooling, the system to give complete visibility into what's going on. And from here, I'll just pop over real quick to an actual. This is a production environment. Uh, I had Claude write a little script for me that automatically anonymizes all of the restaurant names, which is super fun project on its own. But what we're seeing here, Sean, is for this brand, these are their locations, and this is the real-time status of every piece of hardware in the
Wow.
stack that goes from the point of sale and the cloud all the way up to the screen. So I can
Wow.
see that every screen is on. I can see the HDMI that it's set to. We have media players that are running there. We have primary media players, backup media players. I can see the CPU usage. We can see like a real time, we see like a log of the last 24 hours when everything is going down. So this is giving brands visibility into what's happening for the first time for many of these brands. And
It's amazing.
our team is now starting to use this for proactive monitoring. And so again, we're not a hardware company, but we see an HDMI cable go out and we're able to actually file a ticket automatically for the service company that handles that location because, and this is a real example, a rat chewed through an HDMI cable. So now we're able to kind of like evolve into this deeper relationship and partnership spot where we're able to kind of take on and own this because we have the tooling to do so.
That's incredible.
And just one last thing here for each and every one of these, you can just click through and at the location and you can see a real-time view of what is being
Wow.
shown on the menu boards for any location across
Stop
any
it.
size
Go back
buying
and do that
region.
again. Are you
Yeah.
serious?
Yeah. So this is just any location you can pull up and you can click in and you go right to that locations. Now this is
I didn't know it's video also. It's not just images.
I don't know if you've ever been to the internet, Sean, but websites now can do just about anything. And
Listen,
I'm telling you,
I live in a storytelling economy. I try to get business owners to put video on the internet. And when I ask them if they do social media, they go, "Yes, I do LinkedIn." And I check their LinkedIn and it's text only.
the,
So I never underestimate the power of video or the fact that someone's actually using video.
that's a huge opportunity in our point of view of something that can be tested, particularly around like you don't want to mess, I think, with the menu too much, but every menu board design that I've ever seen has a little bit of real estate dedicated towards typically like LTOs or promotions and stuff, and it's always static. right? Let's get videos in there. These are websites. You can run videos on websites. You can run animated GIFs that loop. We could trigger things to change based on the time of day. And this is production, but this is our demo brand. So I have total control over this right now. Sean, you want to see the breakfast menu or you want to see the late night menu?
Late night menu, please. Virgin Mojito. Wow.
Yeah,
Nice.
get after it. Um, Dark mode, dark mode,
Oh, even better. I
super
like dark mode.
sexy.
Yes.
So, I mean, but that's it's a the content management system on the back end that gives us complete control and flexibility over what's being shown in the front end. Saving templates, I just basically chose a different template and hit publish, just like that. And so it was published out there. You know, in a real environment, those would actually be time based, and so automatically would change from all day to late night and back to breakfast in the morning. But this is the stuff that we didn't know we were going to be getting ourselves into. But the more, again, that we talked to brands and operators and kind of understood what their pain points were, visibility just kind of kept coming over and over
Makes
again.
sense.
I remember we were recently in a meeting, and we showed this same dashboard, right? And the CIO of this brand turned to his team and was like, "Do we have this?" And they were like, no, no. He's like, "We need to have this. Like now that I've seen this, I can't not see this. I can't not have this." Where we go from here too, and some of the stuff that the team is working on right now is that, creating like content versions, sort of, the menu layout versions and things
Mhm.
like that, pre-scheduling them so that when our LTO drops on Monday, we know that that goes right on time. And then on Monday, when I get to the office at HQ, pulling up this dashboard and saying, what is the content version running on every single one of my locations? And is it the new LTO version or not? Because again, it's typically just been a black box that people are just throwing the designs out and hoping for the best.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, with that, I just touch a little bit. We've hit a lot of this stuff, but kind of like the engine behind everything now that we've built out this platform, this test and learn digital menu board platform. It is the ability to run dynamic tests. I showed you that case study where we did an A/B test. We've done ABC tests, where we're doing that rotation one third, right? It's really multivariant, multi-session, no limitation necessarily to the number of different things that we can test at a time. The more things you test, the more time you need because each individual thing needs to hit statistical relevance. We should have turned that into a drinking game. Uh,
Statistical relevance.
but we've got all those playbooks in place to know exactly how we need to run stuff. We are bringing machine learning into this. Again, we focused on something that looked at a very bespoke customer journey from product day to the value meal of product day. We're looking also at automatically determining product pairings and affinity mapping. People who bought this also bought that to drive some of those recommendations. Underneath it all is incredibly powerful analytics. So we know at any given time for any given session, again, I use that, when a customer is in front of the digital menu board in the drive-through and they're placing an order, we know exactly what was shown on the screen. We know exactly what they ordered. We know when they added something to their order, took it away, and put something else in instead. We have complete granularity into everything that's happening at every given moment, and then we can look at that at a scale to make insights. We're able to do all of this and run all of these tests. Again, we're targeting 2 tests a month, because of how fast we can move because of the tooling that we've built on the back end. And you already called it out, but massive, very deep point of sale connectivity that powers all of this.
It's incredible. Well, I appreciate you answering my tough questions. Hopefully, the people that are watching that are going to watch this video found value. I when you're talking about it, we obviously know as restaurant owners, operators, how important the menu is. It's where we make all of our revenue. But thinking about it from an e-commerce standpoint, and someone like me, I think about it from a social standpoint of, how it's almost algorithmic what you're able to do. It's like user generated. Like how do you improve the feed of a menu board? And like,
Mhm.
you're feeding what's the most important thing, not only for the brand, but also for the customer, which helps increase guest check size.
Yeah, and it gives them the thing that they're excited about to get. I mean, I'm sure you've spent a ton of time thinking about YouTube thumbnails.
all the
right?
time. I have a whole team dedicated. I literally have someone that's their job on our team is to do
Yeah,
YouTube thumbnails and A/B test them.
exactly.
ABC test them actually.
There you go. And so that again, we want to take that same principle, but apply it to, the new mojito, virgin mojito that we've
Yep.
got running next month, right? How do we show that? How do we talk about it? How do we present it visually? Where on the screen do we present it and test it all? I think, gone are the days of somebody making the final decision. This is the way we're doing it, right? No, it's take the last, like take the 4 or 5 finalists that you couldn't decide between and then run them
Yeah,
all.
exactly.
Well, again, Sean, very much appreciate you taking the time and walking through this with me and keeping me honest here. My information is on the screen. I'm easy to find. Sean, you want to tell people how they can get a hold of you as well?
Sure. Yeah, I host a podcast called Restaurant Influencers. It's on Entrepreneur. We have some of the biggest names in the industry. We actually just launched a show with Checkmate called the Enterprise CTO Podcast. We're going to be publishing our first episode soon, but it is talking all about enterprise technology. I'm weirdly available. You can email me, Sean at calibbq.media. But we love technology, we love hospitality, and we're honored to be learning about stuff like this because we know the world is changing quickly and we need teams and humans that are developing technology like Checkmate so that we can build better businesses.
Awesome. With that, thank you again. Thank you, everyone who joined and everyone who's going to watch this on demand in the future because you've got a busy Friday. Take care. We'll talk to you all soon.